In a little covered but important lawsuit, Todd Blanche is accused of committing forgery on correspondence, an engagement letter with a client when he was in private practice before becoming Donald Trump's lawyer. He worked at a big firm called Cadwalader in New York, and Cadwalader and Todd Blanche have been sued by two people convicted of mail and wire fraud, the Kaplan brothers, who were twins. That suit is pending in Long Island in a trial court, and despite Cadwalader and Blanche calling it scandalous and scurrilous, it has not been dismissed. And within the complaint, which I now have a copy of, which was actually filed a few years ago, but ignored by mainstream media, and should be now front and center in any confirmation hearing for Attorney General Blanche. Blanche is not only accused of forgery, but they hired a handwriting expert who confirmed that the signatures on the engagement letter being used by the law firm to try to collect $1.2 million from the convicted clients is not theirs. I'm Michael Popok. Let's get to the lawsuit of Adam Kaplan and Daniel Kaplan versus Todd Blanche et al. And what it is about. The two brothers say in their complaint, which we have up on Legal AF Substack, that Todd Blanche met with them in Long Island in a city called Great Neck, had a meeting with their mother and their father, and at the end, they decided to hire Blanche as long as his attorney's fees were lower than market, and he didn't require a retainer, which was all true. They also had insurance through a directors and officers policy, and they expected Todd Blanche to go trigger the policy to make sure that at least the first $1 million of attorney's fees were covered. But according to the complaint, not only did Todd Blanche overbill the file with his legal team by a few $1 million, but he also screwed up the case by canceling a deposition or an interview between the clients and the Securities and Exchange Commission that may have led to an off-ramp, some sort of civil settlement. Instead, the depositions were at the last minute canceled by Todd Blanche when he didn't even, according to the complaint, represent the Kaplans any longer, pissing off the SEC. They went forward with the prosecution and they were convicted of 16 counts. According to the complaint, they paid Todd Blanche and his law firm, Cadwalader, over $1.65 million, but it wasn't enough. But the real bombshell allegations, which Todd Blanche has denied, but he will and should have to answer for at his confirmation hearing, are about the forged document. Let me read this to you from the complaint itself. It arises on paragraph 83 of the complaint. On information and belief, Cadwalader forges a retainer agreement. What they mean is Blanche did. And let me just give you the teachable moment here on MeidasTouch and Legal AF. Did I mention you're on Legal AF and MeidasTouch? Hit the subscribe buttons on both. The rules of professional responsibility and ethics for a lawyer says that you must have a written engagement letter with your client laying out the billable hours, the rate, the scope of the engagement, any other material terms, all have to be in writing. You can't have an oral agreement to be somebody's lawyer. And when the Kaplans complained about the bill, Cadwalader sent them an engagement letter, a retainer letter. They looked at the signatures. They said, that wasn't our signatures. When did we sign that? And Blanche responded, according to the complaint, you signed it when I met with you in Great Neck, which is very odd, by the way. My first meeting with a client, I don't normally have the engagement letter with me. I talk about the terms. I then follow up with an engagement letter. And so according to the complaint, which has not been dismissed by the judge, paragraph 84, the Kaplans never signed a written agreement with Cadwalader. Cadwalader never presented the Kaplans with a written agreement. When confronted with the allegations that the document did not reflect the Kaplan's actual signature, Blanche falsely claimed, paragraph 89, that the Kaplans had signed the retainer agreement at their live meeting in Great Neck, Long Island. But according to this complaint, paragraph 90, upon seeing the forged document in December of 2022, the Kaplans hired Jeffrey Luber, a preeminent handwriting expert, to determine whether it was valid or not. This is what we call a questioned documents expert. And then in paragraph 92, here's the bombshell. In February of 2023, the Kaplan's expert concluded that the document, which Cadwalader claims is a retainer agreement, contains signatures of Adam and David, or Daniel, were simulated forgeries. In a written report dated February 2023, Luber opined with the highest degree of confidence that the signatures appearing on the engagement letter were not those of Kaplan, of the two Kaplan brothers. And then they attach that memo. Somebody forged the signature, and they believe Todd Blanche did. Plus, they say Todd Blanche overbilled. If you go to the beginning of the complaint, they even go so far in the lawyers for the complaint to suggest that the reason that Todd Blanche left the law firm in April of 2023 is because he was forced out concerning allegations of forgery and overbilling raised in the lawsuit or by these former clients. They say on the top of page 3 of their complaint, Blanche was a partner at Cadwalader until on or about April 3. On information and belief, Blanche was forced to resign from Cadwalader due at least in part to the misconduct alleged herein, which the Kaplans brought to the attention of the law firm in December of 2022 and January of 2023. Now, we all know what happened in April of 2023. Then private lawyer Todd Blanche leaves Cadwalader for whatever reason and takes on one client to open up his own law firm. I think it's called Blanche and Associates, with Donald Trump being his sole client. He brings Emil Bovey with him, who used to be his colleague in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan. Emil Bovey now has been rewarded along the long line of Trump lawyers who have been rewarded with judgeships or U.S. attorney positions. He was awarded a third circuit court of appeals based in Philadelphia judgeship for a lifetime, an Article 3 appointment. That was Emil Bovey. Todd Blanche got attorney general. Another lawyer for Donald Trump just got nominated to be the U.S. attorney in Manhattan. Several of lawyers who worked with these lawyers at a law firm called Sullivan and Cromwell have been appointed or confirmed to be federal judges. So Donald Trump is filling out the federal judgeships, filling out the U.S. attorney's offices with his former criminal defense lawyers. That's what we're watching in real time. Feeling sluggish? Bloated? Not like yourself. Life bombards us with silent threats. Processed foods, artificial light, and modern stressors disrupt your gut and drain your energy and weaken your immune health. Your body isn't broken. It just needs the right inputs. That's why I've been using Armra Colostrum. I've noticed less bloating, steadier energy, and overall, I just feel more like myself. Armra Colostrum is nature's original blueprint for health. Colostrum is packed with over 400 bioactive nutrients that fortify gut health, fuel fitness recovery, and strengthen immune health, supporting your best performance every day. Take back control of your health. We've worked out a special offer for my audience. Receive 30% off your first subscription order. Go to armra.com/legalaf or enter legalaf to get 30% off your first subscription order. That's armra.com/legalaf. Now, Todd Blanche's got a lot of explaining to do when he gets to the hot seat of the Senate Judiciary Committee and Oversight Committees for his confirmation hearing. And if those committees, and I'm talking to you, Ranking Member Jamie Raskin, Judiciary Committee, Senator Blumenthal, Senator Whitehouse, and the rest, you need to include in your dossier to cross-examine Todd Blanche, the case of Kaplan and Kaplan versus Cadwalader and Todd Blanche. The judge has not dismissed the case, and there's going to be discovery involved in that case as Cadwalader sues for unpaid fees, and these two brothers who went first sue for fraud and forgery and malpractice. They also allege that Todd Blanche committed malpractice by not submitting the original criminal case to the insurance company, Lloyd's of London, in order to trigger coverage and to give the Kaplans $1 million in coverage. That's a rookie mistake. I'm not that surprised, though, because Todd Blanche did not spend much time in private practice, especially as a senior partner. He was in the U.S. Attorney's office. And then he comes out, as many of them do, with a revolving door to go get a cushy 7-figure job working for a law firm. Comes out as after being in the U.S. Attorney's office in Manhattan, gets the job at Cadwalader. He's not used to having clients. He's not used to getting engagement letters signed. He's not used to submitting things to insurance companies. You don't do that skill set at the U.S. Attorney's office. So I'm not shocked that he made a mistake, especially if he wasn't given a mentor at Cadwalader to babysit him as he learned private practice. By contrast, I was in private practice for 30 years before I went in-house with a financial services firm. I know how to get a client. I know how to ethically advise the client and sign the client up. And I know how to apply for insurance if the client has it. And that's another allegation besides the mismanagement of the case that they say contributed to the SEC coming down hard on them, that they could have been a civil settlement exit ramp. The forgery is what is like just neon red, glaring for me. And he should answer to it, among other things. Why are you unwilling, Mr. Blanche, to give sworn testimony, even if it means the dismissal of indictments in your cases? Todd Blanche could have saved, if there was something to say positive, the dismissal of the indictment against Kilmer Abrego Garcia if he had taken the judge's order and actually submitted testimony. He refused. Judge Brinkema in the Eastern District of Virginia just ruled that if Todd Blanche wants to try to save the case and maybe the slush fund that he created with Donald Trump, he'll need to provide written testimony under oath under penalty of perjury. I don't think he's going to do that either, because Todd Blanche doesn't want to testify under oath more than he has to. We'll continue to follow it all right here on Legal AF and on the MeidasTouch network. And while you're here, while I got you, an easy way, people say, how can I support what you do, Popok? It's really easy. We have a podcast. I have a podcast called The Intersection on Tuesday nights. We get an amazing video audience, but we need more audio downloads. So go to wherever you get your audio podcast from and download The Intersection. It's easy to find, and it's an easy way without spending a dime to support our work here on this independent media channel. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.